The sterile hum of fluorescent lights was a constant companion in Sarah's world. A world defined by hushed urgency and the disembodied voices of strangers in distress. As a seasoned 911 operator, Sarah possessed a preternatural calm, a steadying presence that had guided countless individuals through their darkest moments. Her voice, even at 3 a.m., remained even, her instructions precise, her empathy a quiet undercurrent. This was her routine, predictable and often thankless. Yet she found a quiet purpose in being the unseen lifeline. The dimly lit call center, a labyrinth of cubicles and blinking monitors, was her domain, especially during the graveyard shift when the city's anxieties seemed to amplify. Tonight, however, promised to be different. The clock on her screen ticked relentlessly towards 4, and Sarah was halfway through a lukewarm coffee when the next call flooded her headset. A woman's voice, ragged with terror, clawed its way through the static. "Help me! Please, someone's in my house!" The caller, Emily, was almost incoherent, her words punctuated by gasps and the unmistakable sound of something heavy crashing in the background. Sarah's posture straightened, her senses sharpening. "Ma'am, I need you to calm down. Tell me your address. What is happening?" Sarah's tone was a practiced blend of authority and reassurance, designed to cut through panic. Emily managed to stammer out a partial address, her voice trembling. They're here. I hear them." Then a muffled scream, abruptly cut short. Sarah's heart pounded, a primal rhythm against her ribs. This wasn't a typical break-in. The sheer terror in Emily's voice was palpable, raw. Emily, can you hear me? Are you safe? Where are you hiding?" Sarah pressed, her fingers flying across the keyboard, attempting to triangulate the call's origin with the limited information she had. The line crackled, a brief, agonizing silence, then a sharp, almost inaudible gasp from Emily. What followed sent a shiver down Sarah's spine, a cold dread that bypassed her professional composure and burrowed deep into her gut. A whisper, barely audible, yet piercingly clear, ghosted through the receiver. It wasn't Emily's voice. It was deeper, guttural, and the words were chillingly precise. "The silent witness sees all." The phrase was utterly alien, out of place, laced with a malevolent intent that transcended a simple home invasion. Sarah's intuition screamed. This was not just a robbery gone wrong. This was something far more sinister, a premonition of darkness she hadn't encountered in years of service. Before Sarah could process the bizarre whisper, before she could demand more information from Emily, the line went dead. Not a hang-up, but a sudden, abrupt cessation, as if the connection had been severed from the other end. Sarah jabbed the redial button repeatedly, her calm facade cracking under the rising tide of fear. "Trace last call. Get me a callback number," she barked to a colleague, her voice losing its practiced control. But it was no use. The system reported the number as untraceable, a ghost in the digital network. A profound sense of unease settled over Sarah, a heavy cloak of dread. This wasn't a simple dropped call, a technical glitch easily dismissed. The whisper, the abrupt silence, the untraceable number. It all coalesced into a terrifying certainty that something truly terrible had just unfolded, and she had been powerless to stop it. The weight of Emily's last, desperate moments pressed down on her, an invisible burden. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. The weight of Emily's last, desperate moments pressed down on Sarah, an invisible burden that clung to her even as she completed the necessary incident report. "Dropped call," she typed, her fingers hovering over the keyboard, a lie by omission that felt like a betrayal. Her supervisor, a man named Arthur whose primary concern was always departmental metrics, merely grunted when she verbally reported the incident. "Probably just a cell phone losing signal, Sarah. Happens all the time." Don't let it mess with your numbers. His dismissal was a familiar sting, a bureaucratic shrug at the edge of human tragedy. But Sarah couldn't shake the chilling whisper, the guttural words, "The silent witness sees all," that echoed in the quiet corners of her mind, refusing to be categorized as mere static. Her persistent feeling of alarm grew, morphing into an insistent thrum beneath her professional exterior. This wasn't just a dropped call. Her gut screamed it. The untraceable number, the specific menacing phrase, the sheer terror in Emily's voice. It all coalesced into a profound sense of unease that permeated her very being. It was a feeling she knew intimately, a cold dread that resonated with a distant, unhealed wound. A flashback, sharp and unbidden, pierced through the present moment. Sarah was young again, barely a teenager, huddled by a landline phone, listening to the frantic, then suddenly silent voice of her younger brother. He had been playing in the woods behind their house, a place they'd been warned about, and his terrified cries of "someone's here" had been met with a chilling click, an abrupt disconnect. The police, hampered by a lack of immediate information and a dismissive dispatcher, had arrived too late. Her brother, lost to the woods and an unresolved mystery, became a silent testament to the devastating cost of delayed response and ignored intuition. The memory was a raw, festering wound, a constant reminder of powerlessness. This personal history, this deep-seated trauma, now fueled an unshakable determination. She would not let Emily become another forgotten silence. Driven by a need that transcended her job description, Sarah waited until her shift ended, then returned to the deserted call center, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and resolve. She knew the system's intricacies, the hidden back doors and archived logs that were rarely accessed by anyone other than IT. With practiced ease, she navigated the labyrinthine digital files, searching. She started with Emily's partial address, then broadened her search to the area code, looking for other calls that had been mysteriously hung up, calls dismissed as technical glitches or prank calls. What she found chilled her to the bone. A pattern began to emerge, subtle but undeniably disturbing. Over the past year, nearly a dozen similar hang-up calls from the same general area had been quietly filed away, each one dismissed with the same bureaucratic indifference. As Sarah listened to snippets of these archived calls, a common thread, almost imperceptible to an untrained ear, revealed itself. A faint, repetitive background noise, a rhythmic, almost mechanical hum, was present in each one, including Emily's. It was a sound that didn't belong in a typical home, a sound that spoke of something industrial, perhaps even concealed. The whisper from Emily's call, "The silent witness sees all," echoed in her mind, now intertwined with the faint, rhythmic hum, connecting her past trauma with this growing, sinister present. Sarah realized with a sickening lurch that this wasn't an isolated incident, not a random act of violence. A larger, more sinister pattern was at play, a dark web that seemed to directly touch upon her own unhealed wounds, threatening to consume her if she didn't act. The faint, rhythmic hum became Sarah's obsession, a haunting melody that played on a loop in her mind, even as she tried to sleep. It was the key, she instinctively knew, to unlocking the terrifying mystery surrounding Emily's call and the string of other dismissed emergencies. Operating strictly off-duty now, using a borrowed laptop and the anonymity of public Wi-Fi, Sarah began her own investigation, feeling like a rogue detective in a city that preferred its secrets buried. Her resources were limited to her sharp intuition, her intimate knowledge of overlooked details, and a burning desire for justice that transcended any official protocol. She revisited the details of Emily's call again and again, playing the scratchy recording on repeat, dissecting every microsecond of sound. The background noise, that almost imperceptible hum, was clearer to her now, amplified by her focused attention. It wasn't just a hum, it had a specific cadence, a mechanical drone that suggested heavy machinery, perhaps a ventilation system, or even something more sinister, operating continuously. Using open-source mapping tools and cross-referencing public utility records, a painstaking process that took days of relentless effort, Sarah painstakingly narrowed down the possible locations where such a distinct sound could emanate. Her search led her to a specific, affluent neighborhood on the city's outskirts, a place of sprawling estates and manicured lawns, far removed from the everyday struggles of the urban core. Through property records, she discovered that Emily's address, the one she had managed to partially trace before the line went dead, belonged to a sprawling estate owned by the Caldwell family. The Caldwells. The name resonated with a certain hushed reverence in the city's elite circles. They were powerful, influential, their wealth and connections stretching back generations. Sarah's research into the family quickly unearthed a murky undercurrent beneath their polished facade. Whispers of dark secrets, rumors of past scandals conveniently swept under the rug, and hushed allegations of questionable business dealings dotted their history. Nothing concrete, of course, just the kind of vague, unsettling gossip that often clung to families of immense power. Her initial, discreet inquiries through official channels were met with immediate, chilling resistance. When she tried to access more detailed reports on the Caldwell estate or any past incidents involving the family, digital doors slammed shut. Veiled threats, delivered through anonymous emails and cryptic phone calls to her personal number, warned her to cease her unauthorized snooping. Her supervisor, Arthur, suddenly became much more assertive, pulling her aside for a stern lecture. "Sarah, I've had complaints. You're digging where you shouldn't be. Drop this now. It's against protocol, and it's going to cost you your job." His eyes held a newfound coldness, a clear warning that transcended mere bureaucratic concern. Sarah felt an icy tendril of fear curl in her stomach, but it was quickly overshadowed by a surge of defiant resolve. She realized then that she was increasingly isolated, a lone voice against an unseen, powerful adversary. The cover-up, she now understood, went far deeper than a simple dismissed call. It was an intricate web, meticulously woven by powerful individuals determined to protect their secrets at all costs. This wasn't just about a missing woman. It was about challenging a deeply entrenched system, an insidious network of influence and corruption that had operated with impunity for years. Every threat, every dismissal only strengthened her conviction. She was no longer just investigating a crime, she was putting herself in grave danger, becoming a target in a game far larger and more perilous than she could have ever imagined. The hum, the whispers, the untraceable calls, they were all threads in a tapestry of deceit, and Sarah was determined to unravel it, no matter the personal cost. The icy tendril of fear still lingered, but Sarah's defiance burned brighter, an unyielding flame against the encroaching darkness. Her solitary investigation, however, had reached a critical juncture. She needed more than just intuition and archived call logs. She needed a guide through the labyrinthine corridors of power and corruption that shielded the Caldwells. Her thoughts turned to the city's underbelly, to those who had once dared to challenge the untouchable, only to be broken and discarded. Among them, one name surfaced repeatedly in the hushed whispers of the police precinct she had discreetly visited. Mark, a former police detective, now a ghost of his former self, disgraced and forgotten. Finding Mark was not easy. He had retreated into the shadows, a self-imposed exile in a rundown apartment on the city's forgotten edge. His days marked by the clinking of cheap whiskey bottles and the bitter taste of betrayal. When Sarah first knocked on his door, the man who answered was a stark contrast to the legendary detective she had heard about. His eyes, once sharp and piercing, were now clouded with a weary cynicism. His posture slumped under the weight of countless disappointments. He was initially hostile, his voice raspy with suspicion, dismissing her pleas with a curt wave of his hand. "Another do-gooder trying to stir up trouble where there's none," he'd grumbled, attempting to slam the door in her face. But Sarah, drawing on an inner strength she hadn't known she possessed, held her ground. She spoke of Emily, of the chilling whisper, of the rhythmic hum, and finally, of her own traumatic past, a raw, honest confession that peeled back her professional veneer. She revealed the pain of her own unresolved tragedy, the ghost of a loved one lost due to a system that had failed, just as it was failing Emily. It was this vulnerability, this shared wound, that finally pierced through Mark's hardened exterior. A flicker of something akin to recognition, perhaps even empathy, ignited in his eyes. He hesitated. Then, with a sigh that seemed to carry the weight of years, he opened the door wider, inviting her into his dim, cluttered sanctuary. Over lukewarm coffee and the lingering scent of stale cigarettes, Mark slowly began to unravel his own tale of woe. He spoke of the Caldwells, of their insidious reach, confirming Sarah's darkest suspicions. He revealed how he had been forced out of the force, his career meticulously dismantled, for getting too close to the truth about the family's illicit activities. He recounted how evidence had mysteriously vanished, witnesses had recanted their statements under duress, and his superiors, once supportive, had suddenly turned against him, their loyalty bought and paid for. "They don't just own politicians and judges, Sarah," he warned, his voice low and gravelly. "They own the very air you breathe in this city. You're playing with fire, girl, and you're going to get burned." His words, however, were not a deterrent, but a confirmation, solidifying Sarah's resolve. Mark painted a grim picture of a vast network of corruption, a web so intricate and powerful that it could manipulate evidence, silence witnesses, and crush anyone who dared to stand in its way. He warned her unequivocally that her life was now in grave danger, that the Caldwells would not hesitate to eliminate any perceived threat. Despite his initial reluctance, a spark of his old detective's fire seemed to rekindle within him as Sarah spoke, her unwavering conviction a stark contrast to his own resignation. Together, they meticulously pieced together fragments of evidence, Mark's extensive knowledge of the city's criminal underbelly complementing Sarah's fresh perspective. They connected seemingly unrelated incidents, old cold cases, and forgotten police reports that, when viewed through their combined lens, began to form a coherent, terrifying narrative. Their breakthrough came unexpectedly, through an old, dusty file Mark had kept hidden, a file from his unceremoniously ended investigation. It contained a name, a former groundskeeper for the Caldwell estate, who had been dismissed under suspicious circumstances years ago. This man, a key witness, had vanished, living in fear, Mark believed, of retribution. After days of relentless searching, they finally located him in a remote, forgotten corner of the state, living under an assumed name, a shadow of his former self. His eyes, wide with terror, confirmed their fears, but also offered a glimmer of hope. He revealed a critical piece of information, a hidden detail about the Caldwell estate that had always bothered him. A secret, reinforced room, beneath the main house, accessible only through a disguised entrance in the old wine cellar. He had only seen it once, briefly, but the memory had haunted him. The revelation of the hidden detail, a secret bunker or panic room, confirmed their deepest suspicions. It was the missing piece, the explanation for the rhythmic hum, the muffled sounds, the untraceable calls. Emily could be there, and perhaps others. But the discovery also highlighted the immense power of their adversary, the meticulous planning, the sheer audacity of hiding such a place within plain sight. Their task, they both realized, now seemed almost impossible. But retreat was no longer an option. The fight had officially begun. The fight had officially begun, and Sarah and Mark knew their next move had to be precise, calculated, and above all, covert. The existence of a hidden bunker beneath the Caldwell estate was not merely a detail, it was a potential prison, a silent tomb for Emily and possibly others. Their primary objective shifted from mere investigation to a desperate rescue mission. Using Mark's old contacts, remnants of a network he had built during his honest days on the force, they managed to acquire something invaluable. The original blueprints of the sprawling Caldwell estate, meticulously detailed, revealing every hidden passage and structural secret. Poring over the faded parchment late into the night, the blueprints confirmed the groundskeeper's story. A section beneath the main house, disguised as an innocuous wine cellar, was indeed a reinforced subterranean structure. A panic room, or more likely, a bunker designed for long-term confinement. The rhythmic hum Sarah had heard in Emily's call, the subtle vibration in the archived recordings, now made terrifying sense. It was the ventilation system, perhaps even generators, keeping a grim secret alive beneath the manicured lawns. Their suspicions solidified into a chilling certainty. Emily was likely held captive within those fortified walls. Their plan was audacious, bordering on suicidal. Infiltrating the Caldwell estate, an impregnable fortress guarded by advanced security systems and presumably watchful eyes, was a monumental undertaking. They devised a risky strategy, relying on Mark's intimate knowledge of old security protocols and Sarah's sharp observational skills. The night they chose was moonless, the air thick with an oppressive humidity that mirrored their growing tension. Dressed in dark clothing, their faces obscured, they approached the estate from its least visible flank, a dense thicket bordering the property. As they navigated the perimeter, the unexpected became their constant companion. Infrared sensors, motion detectors, and even pressure plates, far more sophisticated than Mark had anticipated, forced them to adapt on the fly. They moved like ghosts, each step measured, each breath held. A tripwire, almost invisible against the overgrown foliage, nearly gave them away. Mark's quick reflexes pulling Sarah back just in time. The close call sent a jolt of adrenaline through them, a stark reminder of the deadly stakes. They were no longer just investigators. They were intruders in a high-security prison, and the consequences of detection would be fatal. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they located the disguised entrance to the bunker, hidden behind a false wall in the wine cellar, exactly as the blueprints indicated. The heavy steel door, seamlessly integrated into the rustic stone, was a testament to the Caldwell's meticulousness and their sinister intent. Mark, with a set of specialized tools, worked with a practiced, almost surgical precision. The soft clicks of tumblers echoed unnervingly loud in the confined space. The door groaned open, revealing a dark, stale-smelling passage. Inside, the air was thick with despair, a palpable weight that pressed down on Sarah's chest. The bunker was not a mere panic room, it was a makeshift dungeon. In a dimly lit cell, huddled in a corner, was Emily, her eyes wide with a mixture of terror and disbelief as she saw them. But Emily was not alone. In other cells, equally grim, were more figures, their faces gaunt, their spirits broken. The true nature of the Caldwell's crimes unfolded before their horrified eyes, far more heinous than their darkest imaginings. Evidence of prolonged captivity, of systematic abuse, and of unspeakable acts lay scattered about, a horrifying tableau of human suffering. This was not just a home invasion, it was a sophisticated, long-running operation of exploitation and cruelty, shielded by wealth and influence. The shocking discovery within the bunker confirmed their worst fears, revealing a horrifying truth that would shake the community to its core. But their escape, they knew, was far from assured. The silence of the bunker was suddenly deafening, amplifying the cold dread that settled deep within their bones. The silence of the bunker shattered as Sarah and Mark moved with desperate urgency, attempting to extract Emily and the other victims from their grim cells. Their mission had shifted from discovery to a perilous extraction, each second ticking away like a bomb. Just as Mark was fumbling with a lock on one of the other cells, a guttural shout echoed from the passage they had just entered. Footsteps, heavy and deliberate, grew louder, signaling the arrival of the family's enforcers. A tense standoff was imminent, a brutal collision between their desperate hope and the Caldwells' ruthless control. Two burly figures, their faces hard and expressionless, emerged from the shadows, their eyes immediately locking onto Sarah and Mark. One held a glinting metal pipe, the other a firearm, its black barrel unnervingly steady. Emily, her eyes wide with renewed terror, recoiled further into her cramped space. A desperate struggle for survival erupted. Mark, despite his years, moved with surprising speed, shoving Sarah behind him as the enforcers advanced. He parried the pipe wielder with a swift, practiced movement, his old police training kicking in. Sarah, her heart pounding against her ribs, knew they couldn't win a direct fight. Her quick thinking, honed by countless emergency calls, took over. Her gaze swept the claustrophobic space, landing on a series of exposed pipes and valves. With a surge of adrenaline, she grabbed a heavy wrench from Mark's discarded toolkit and slammed it against a large, rusted valve, twisting it with all her might. A high-pitched shriek of escaping steam filled the bunker, momentarily disorienting the enforcers and creating a thick, blinding fog. It was a crude but effective diversion. Mark capitalized on the chaos, disarming the pipe wielder with a swift, brutal strike to the arm. He then turned his attention to the man with the gun, a silent, deadly dance unfolding in the swirling steam. Sarah, meanwhile, used the precious seconds to frantically unlock Emily's cell, her fingers fumbling with the unfamiliar mechanism. Emily, weak but resolute, stumbled out, her eyes fixed on the other victims still trapped. Just as they thought they might gain an advantage, a new, chilling voice cut through the clamor. "How utterly disappointing," it purred, laced with an arrogant amusement that sent shivers down Sarah's spine. The family head, a charismatic but utterly ruthless figure, appeared at the entrance, flanked by two more enforcers, their faces grim. His presence exuded a predatory calm, a stark contrast to the frantic struggle unfolding before him. He surveyed the scene, a faint smile playing on his lips, as if observing a poorly staged play. "Such an effort for so little. You should have simply walked away, little operator." A final, brutal confrontation was inevitable. The family head's eyes, cold and calculating, fixed on Sarah. "You meddled where you didn't belong. Now you will pay the price." Emily, seeing the man who had tormented her, let out a desperate guttural cry, a raw sound of pure anguish and defiance. That cry, combined with Sarah's personal vendetta for the countless voiceless victims, ignited a fierce strength within her. She lunged forward, not at the family head, but at a control panel near the entrance, her intuition screaming for a different kind of weapon. She slammed her fist onto an emergency alarm button, its blaring siren adding to the cacophony. Just as the family head's enforcers moved to subdue her, and Mark, battered but unyielding, prepared for a final stand, the thud of heavy boots and the distinct crackle of police radios echoed from the passage. A wave of uniformed officers burst into the bunker, their weapons drawn, their faces stern. Unexpected help had arrived, a direct response to Sarah's desperate distress signal, amplified by the blaring alarm. The tide had turned, dramatically and decisively. The family head's smug expression faltered, replaced by a flicker of pure rage. The fight was far from over in its entirety. But the immediate peril had subsided, and the consequences of their actions, both good and terrible, would now reverberate throughout their lives. The blaring siren of the alarm, now joined by the shouts of responding officers, signaled not only the end of the immediate threat, but also the beginning of an entirely new, complex battle. The family head, his face contorted in a mask of impotent fury, was swiftly apprehended, his attempts at bluster and manipulation falling flat against the overwhelming presence of law enforcement. His enforcers, caught off guard by the rapid influx of police, offered little resistance. Emily and the other victims, their bodies trembling with a mixture of terror and relief, were carefully escorted out of the horrific bunker, shielded from the flashing lights and curious glances that would soon follow. Medical teams, swiftly dispatched, were already on standby, ready to offer the first signs of care to those who had endured unimaginable suffering. In the ensuing days and weeks, the Caldwell family's carefully constructed empire began to crumble with a speed that astonished the city. The evidence unearthed in the bunker, combined with the brave testimonies of Emily and the other survivors, painted a horrifying picture of depravity and systemic abuse. What had once been whispered rumors now screamed from every headline, shocking a community that had long admired the family's philanthropic facade. The sheer scale and duration of their crimes, shielded by their immense wealth and influence, sent ripples of disbelief and outrage through every stratum of society. Arrests followed, not just of the family head, but of key associates, lawyers, and even some public officials who had, for years, turned a blind eye or actively participated in the cover-up. Sarah and Mark, once relegated to the shadows, found themselves thrust into the unwelcome glare of the public spotlight. They were hailed as heroes, their faces plastered across news channels and newspapers, their story becoming a national sensation. Yet, this newfound recognition felt profoundly unsettling to Sarah. The quiet, anonymous life of a 911 operator, where her greatest triumphs were often unseen and unheard, was now a distant memory. The media's insatiable appetite for details, the endless interviews, and the constant scrutiny were a stark contrast to her reserved nature. She found herself grappling with the emotional toll of the investigation, the trauma of what she had witnessed resurfacing in vivid, unwanted flashbacks. The images of the bunker, the gaunt faces of the victims, and the chilling arrogance of the family head haunted her waking hours and invaded her dreams. Sleep became a luxury she rarely afforded, replaced by restless nights and the gnawing feeling of an unshakable unease. Mark, however, found a measure of redemption in the chaos. His name, once synonymous with disgrace and failure, was partially restored. The police department, initially hesitant, now lauded him as a hero, acknowledging the truth in his past investigations that had been so cruelly suppressed. He navigated the media circus with a weary grace, his years of experience lending him an air of quiet authority. He spoke not of his own heroism, but of the victims, and of Sarah's unwavering courage. The legal proceedings that followed were long and arduous. The Caldwell family, even in their downfall, attempted to wield their remaining power, hiring a phalanx of high-priced lawyers to discredit Sarah, Mark, and the victims. They launched smear campaigns, questioning their motives, their sanity, and their credibility. Sarah endured grueling cross-examinations, her every word scrutinized, her composure tested to its limits. Yet, each time, she stood firm, her resolve fueled by the memory of Emily's desperate cry and the faces of the other survivors. The community, initially reeling from the shock, galvanized into action, demanding justice, their outrage a powerful force against the family's last-ditch efforts at manipulation. Ultimately, justice, though slow and painful, began to prevail. Convictions were secured, sentences handed down, and the Caldwell family's reign of terror definitively ended. Sarah received a formal commendation from the city, a polished plaque, and a heartfelt speech from the mayor. She accepted it with a polite smile, but inside she felt a profound emptiness. The victory, while undeniably significant, was hollowed by the lingering shadows of what she had seen and experienced. The fight had been won, but the scars remained, deeply etched into her psyche. As she looked out at the assembled crowd, a mix of grateful citizens and eager reporters, a single unsettling thought crystallized in her mind. Some wounds never truly heal, and the fight against such insidious corruption was not a single battle, but an ongoing, relentless war. This realization left her contemplating her future, wondering if she could ever truly go back to the quiet life she once knew, or if this experience had irrevocably altered her path forever. The weight of the commendation plaque felt heavy in Sarah's hands, a symbol of a victory that felt more like a profound exhaustion. The applause still echoed, but it was the silence that followed, the quiet introspection that truly defined her next steps. The 911 call center, once her sanctuary of structured urgency, now felt suffocating, its routine a stark reminder of the horrors she had unearthed. She knew, with an unshakable certainty, that she could not return to the anonymous comfort of the headset, not after witnessing such darkness. The whispers of the victims, the chilling arrogance of the family head, and the lingering sense of injustice for those still suffering resonated too deeply within her. So, Sarah made the difficult decision to leave. She resigned from her position, much to the dismay of her supervisor, who saw it as a loss of a valuable, albeit troublesome, employee. But for Sarah, it was not an act of surrender, but one of redirection. Her pain, her trauma, and her newfound understanding of systemic vulnerabilities would not be wasted. She dedicated herself to a new path, one where her experience could become a shield for others. She began advocating for victims of similar crimes, leveraging her unique perspective as a former operator who had heard the silent cries for help, and as a survivor of a different kind of negligence in her own past. She spoke at conferences, shared her story with budding law enforcement officers, and consulted with legal teams, her calm demeanor now imbued with a formidable authority. Mark, too, found a renewed purpose. His reputation, once tarnished, had been significantly restored, and he no longer felt the bitter sting of past failures. Together, he and Sarah established a foundation. It was a modest beginning, but its mission was grand: to support whistleblowers who dared to challenge powerful interests and to provide comprehensive aid to victims of abuse who often fell through the cracks of the justice system. Mark's investigative acumen and Sarah's empathetic understanding formed a powerful synergy, creating a haven for those who had nowhere else to turn. Emily, having navigated her own arduous journey of recovery, became an integral part of their work. The initial terror that had gripped her slowly receded, replaced by a quiet resilience and an unshakable resolve. She became a powerful voice against abuse, her testimony a poignant reminder of the human cost of unchecked power. Inspired by Sarah's unwavering courage, Emily found her own strength, transforming her victimhood into a platform for change. She spoke publicly, her words resonating with clarity and conviction, inspiring countless others to seek help and challenge their abusers. The bond that had formed between Sarah, Mark, and Emily, forged in the crucible of shared trauma and the fight for justice, deepened into an unlikely yet profoundly strong family. They found solace and strength in each other's presence, a silent understanding passing between them that transcended words. Sarah, in the quiet moments of reflection, finally confronted the ghosts of her past. The lingering shadows of her own family tragedy, the unresolved incident that had haunted her for so long, began to recede. She accepted her trauma not as a weakness, but as a catalyst, a painful lesson that had ultimately led her to this new, purposeful life. There was no sudden dramatic healing, but a gradual, gentle unfolding of peace. The gnawing unease that had plagued her since Emily's call slowly dissipated, replaced by a profound sense of purpose. She realized that true justice was not solely about punishment for the wicked, but equally about prevention, about healing the broken, and about creating a future where such horrors could not thrive in the shadows. Her redemption was not found in revenge against the family head, but in the transformation of her deepest pain into a force for good, a beacon of hope for those who still suffered in silence. Sarah had not just saved Emily. She had, in a profound way, saved herself, building a legacy that would echo far beyond the confines of a 911 call center, a testament to resilience, courage, and the enduring power of human connection. The fight was indeed ongoing, but now Sarah faced it not with dread, but with serene determination, a quiet warrior in a world still aching for justice.